Alrighty, so we're moving into week 6, and I wanted to set the understanding of the difference between what you did in week 4 and week 5 than what we're going to do in week 6. Because in week 6 and beyond, actually, notice we actually end up doing 2 weeks of relating, okay? And then we have a problem set for relating, another problem set for relating, and then comes the opening of the technical interview. Now, I'll talk more about this later, but I'm just saying it here because these problem sets are really where you're taking what you're learning and seeing how well it translates. Okay. So I just wanted to give you that as we move from the problem sets into working on the code alongs for the lectures from CS50. Okay. And just understanding the importance of knowing how to write queries on your own and without any assistance from AI, or really often I tell you, try not to look at your notes when you first do it. If you're struggling, then yeah, it's worth looking at your notes, but you want to see, because if you're in my technical interview, your notes are not available to you. It's really just you writing queries. And these two were really targeted to help you see some of the types of queries I may have on a technical interview. Now, this week we move into our next major topic, which is relating. So let's go ahead and look at our week 6 attendance. Okay. So there was, oh, I actually meant to take this out, but just since it's here, the proof of effort that I saw, and the reason I guess I put this here is that I'm actually in the end of week 4. And the proof of effort is really important because it shows me your progression of thought. And if that's something you struggled with, definitely come and talk to me or talk to Brianna about what needs to go in there. But basically, you're just copying what your attempts were and showing me your progression of thought, how you got to the answer. Okay. So this week, as I said before, we're moving into relating. Okay. And so this week and this week and next, there's no proof of effort. That README file that you were using for your proof of effort now will be your notes. Okay, so we're moving back to what we had when we were looking at writing, coding along. I just want to give you that. We still do the proof of work. Okay, so just kind of get that oriented that now you're taking notes, you're writing queries. When you write queries, and I give you the points to actually in the instruction to do the proof of work, you do that so that you make sure those commits have both notes if it's required, SQL if it was required, and proof of work. Now, I am going to say this too, is I ended up, instead of like I had done, because I rewrote the instructions to give you hopefully more of a breakdown. But going forward, when you're creating query files, you'll just copy a previous query file, and you'll see this when we get to the setup and colon that you're going to do. But you'll just copy a previous one, and then you'll update the proof of work file and the bash command. Okay, because now those changes that are in there, we won't have any other changes there. So just know that that will be different. I'm not going to give you as an example here on this one. We're going to get a new folder, right? Same level as querying. Anyway, you're going to go through this. I'm not going to do it here, but when you do create that query file, you're not creating, well, you are creating a new file, but you're copying the contents from one we already had and just doing those updates. One thing I do want to talk about is hard coding. What is hard coding when writing SQL? I saw an example or two of this when you were writing for the problem set. And so if you happen to go through when trying to answer, writing SQL to answer a problem, and you actually coded the column, which is the ID column, right? Because you're like, hey, that was that record that I just said, here's the answer. That's hard coding. And your queries want to be able to answer the problem, not by hard coding. Okay. So I just want to say that in case you run into that and you hear me say you hard coded when you weren't supposed to. Okay. All right. Hard coding is not needed. Now, I say that too because when what you're about to see, and I'll do it here in the colon, and then Carter will do it as well, when we're starting to have more than one file. And that's what you're going to see in this relating section is we have, because almost 90% of the time you have more than one file. Okay, more than one table, not more than one file, one database file, more than one table. Okay, so I just want you to know if you hear me say you hard coded that, that's what that means. Okay, now in this case, the videos you're about to watch are actually from last semester. I spent some time today and I went through them, and what I'm doing here is I'm actually helping you walk through, see how the setup's done. I challenge you to do it on your own. We have a new database that looks like it's the same name as the old one, but it's not. And you definitely got to go get it because this one has more than one table. And I'm going to do some pre-learning with you. So all of these videos that you're about to do for the graded part are in here. Now, at the end of this, I have you ask at least 2 questions, right? So watch this content. You do need a code along. I give you points for doing the code along, the proof of work, the Git workflows, right? But I also want to ask you for your feedback on the AI reviews. Now, this is something, and I put this here because I'm going to show you something that's going to show up a little differently this week, but also your feedback is important. And there's been a couple of things that happened this semester, but we fixed them fairly quickly because for those of you who were great enough to report it out on Discord, Rick, the developer, saw them and fixed it right away. So this is a work in progress, but I feel like I'm really actually I don't want to preface your or try to sway your because I'm really interested in what your experiences are of doing them. Now, having said that, this week, because we're going to end up writing what's called subqueries, right? So actually, Carter's going to show you how to do what he calls one query at a time, which does have some hard coding in it. But then you'll end up writing subqueries. And because our queries are now going to get longer, and I'm just going to bring up this week's week 6 AI reviews. One of the things you may notice, because I haven't noticed this is consistent, but this is consistent, and I only have you write part of the query, but sometimes that query is so long, it'll run off. So if you ever are in here and it feels like it cuts off, just use your mouse to scroll back and forth. Okay. So just know that that's true. And as part of your reply, your feedback is important. You're our customers, right? We've built this product to hopefully help students see how well they are retaining and understanding the content covered. Okay. Okay, so 20 points comes from your 2 questions that you're going to do here, right? And then find an answer, right? Like if you know the answer, then answer. Like so, I want you to come up with 2 questions and try to have them be different, right? To hopefully help with a good discussion, right? And then again, try to find a student who doesn't have a reply and reply to them. If you don't know the answer, maybe go do some research, but make it substantive. Okay, so that's your setup for this week. Have a great week. There is a break offered in the next one, so make sure you see that. Make sure you do submit your URL to tell me you're taking the break when the optional break is in there. All right, have a great week. I'll talk to you later.